Uh-oh. Do I have the power of God and anime on my side? Haha, yes I do. 1969 was a landmark year. First of all, nice. Second off, man landed on the moon. Stonewall happened in June, the summer of love. A plethora of things went on in 1969. And also, on September 13th, arguably the most important thing in 1969 happened. Scooby Doo, Where Are You? Premiered on CBS. Whether they knew it or not, Hanna-Barbera introduced us to an entirely iconic cast of characters. I mean, obviously, yes, Scooby, Velma, Shaggy, Freddie, but I'm here to talk about one person and one person only. Fashion icon Daphne Blake. One thing that's always irked me is she doesn't really wear outfits that are in line with the fashion of the time. And more importantly, every time Scooby-Doo gets like an update or a reboot in animation form, not much happens to her outfit. Originally, her accessories and her mini dress are pretty on brand for the late 60s. They fit in. Of course, there were some choices for animation to make it a little easier that weren't exactly fashion choices, like giving her a more form-fitting dress or a shirt and skirt, depending on how you interpret it. At that time, you're more likely to see one that was more structured and loose-fitting. But everything after that gets a bit dicey. I think we can do better. I really do. It's my goal. No, it's my mission to take different sewing patterns from each decade and give Daphne a period-accurate outfit. We're going to create looks that were true to Daphne's character, but also more true to what trendy teens were wearing each decade. So come on, me and you, come on. Let's go on a journey through the decades of Daphne. I've found myself this mini dress pattern from 1969, and I think it just screams Daphne in real life. It really typifies, I think, the late 60s in sewing and fashion. You've got sort of the remnants of the mod era, the iconic shapes of the 60s with the geometric bust combo bodice and skirt dart seam situation, and then a more flared, structured bottom of the skirt that's very much coming away from the body. But then you're also seeing those like flowing lines and puffy sleeves that we see and we think iconically hippie, going into the 70s, summer of love. It's a really great, I think, transitional piece that marks where Daphne started, 1969. Because this pattern was printed in 1969, I went ahead and traced it off, mostly because sometimes it really terrifies me to cut into an old pattern. I mean, that's 50-year-old tissue paper. While doing so, I took a quick break to commune with the floor, as you do. And then I cut and whipped up a quick muslin because that bananas dart / bodice seam feels full of pitfalls. I made a little procrastination scrunchie. Can you see? I wasn't sure if the bust area was gonna work, but I'm actually quite happy with, come here, you dang scene. There we go. I'm actually quite happy with that scene. I was a little worried because that is a crazy bazonkers waist and dart, especially if you're gonna have to do like any sort of adjustments on it, but that actually came out really nice. Don't worry about this one. This one, I completely simply forgot to transfer any kind of markings whatsoever, so it's just not representative of what it actually looks like. As you can kind of see, this isn't supposed to be super tight, so I think what I might do instead, I might just give a generous cut to the hips area, do a little measurement, and make sure, because like as you can see, it's tight, whereas up at the top, even if I nip it in for like zipper allowance, it's fine, it's fitted, but it's not too bad. The shoulders will be a bit, I think we might be able to take a little off the shoulders too, honestly. It's a bit difficult when you're just doing this alone because you have nobody to like pin you in. When pinched for approximately 5/8 of an inch, it's livable, it's doable. I think we can make that work. I think we are safe to cut into our good fabric. This amazing fabric I found was just like a purple polyester sheet from the thrift store, but it's the perfect Daphne purple, so who can say no, truly. First things first, back darts. I sewed them up and then I tied them off by hand. I've heard this is like a couture technique or whatever, but I just liked that it creates darts that pucker a little less. Then I went to give it a quick press, and I was so excited to show you my excellent pink elephant watering can that I simply was blind to the fact that treachery was afoot. Soon, I would learn the perils of overfilling my iron. I basted the interfacing and then seam ripped off the remaining dregs of what made this once a bed sheet, which was just the top hem. And then I reinforced the corners of that bazinga, bazoingo, bazuzu dart so that it would stay strong against my tatés. Next, I pinned the back panels to the sides of the front and sewed. Finally, tragedy struck. My iron barfed out a bunch of water onto my bodice. I tried to get better footage, but I was so flustered that I think I hit record when I thought I was hitting stop record and vice versa, and then I just gave up and decided to eat some bread. It's Thursday, and despite my general tired outward appearance, I'm actually really excited for today. Most of today is just gonna be construction. Yesterday when the iron overflowed, and I just sat down and I had my bread, I was like, oh wait, this is actually really good. And then I was like, you know what, I actually just want dinner. And then I was like, you know what, I actually don't want to be sewing right now. So after dinner, I painted my shoes because it turns out it's quite difficult to find the exact kind of pilgrim shoe that she was wearing, and especially in that color. So I grabbed some lilac leather paint from a leather goods store, and I simply would highly recommend that kind of paint also, because I've tried using, spray, like flexible spray interior vinyl paint before, and it cracked all to hell, and you can only ever find like 2 colors in it, because it's always got to be like whatever car colors are popular. So this was a lot more variety. You can mix it, and yes, you do have to worry about brush strokes, but it was not a big deal. Like it just simply wasn't. So those are drying and curing so that they don't crickle, crackle, and just peel right off the second I put them on. And now I just gotta get into it. I gotta sew up those darts that are bananas, banonkers, bonanza, banane. And then I believe it's on to facings, 2 seams up the front and back. And then, finishing up details. We're gonna have to check the length because I am a petite treat. I come in at a whopping like 5'2½", and most patterns are made for somebody at least 5'5", at least. So we'll see how that goes. But so far the fit's looking all right. When I cut generously. And on top of that, the fabric had a mind of its own. So we'll see if that really affected it once it's a little more constructed. I'll check back in later and let you know.
Sailing ship upon the desert sands. Follow stars to help you understand where you're going. Your song will be sung. Find a place to hide beneath the ground. Earth and sky do not hold you.
So, took a break for lunch. I had tomato soup with homemade bread and cheese sprinkles, thank you for asking. And what I got done before lunch is a nice big zipper. I'm quite happy with this one because as you can see, she's not squiggly like bacon. I hate when zippers get squiggly like bacon. It's not, you know, perfect. We've got a little bit of a wonkiness. I think that could be just as likely due to maybe the fabric being cut a little differently. But generally speaking, things match up. This was all step one, by the way. We're like, I would say a good 60% way through this dress. We literally just have facings, sleeves, and decorations and a hem, and then it's done. Oh, and I guess closing the front, but that's like one seam. And that was step one. There are 5 steps in theory in this infographic that they give you. In step one, we had, I'll go read it. That's what I'll do. This was all step one. Step one, darts, seams, etc. Stitch darts in bodice backs. Press toward centers. Baste interfacing to wrong sides of bodice backs. Trim off shoulder notches on
bodice
interfaces.
fronts by stitching along
Reinforce
the dotted
inward corner of
seam lines
side seams
indicated
of
on
bodice.
pattern.
Clip
Baste
inward
interfacings
corners
to wrong
bodice
side of
fronts
bodice
as
front.
indicated on
Trim
the
off
pattern.
shoulders
Stitch
and
bodice
center front
to
notches
skirt,
on
continuing to
interfacing.
stitch bodice front dart
Stitch
seams,
center
having
back
side
seam to
seams at
circle.
circles
Insert
and back
zipper
edges
following
even,
instructions
and stitching
on
and
pattern.
stitching as
Shoulder
indicated on
seams,
pattern.
stitch
Slash dart to
center front
3/4
seam
inches
to
from
circle.
point, press open and points flat. Okay, so with that, I'm not even finished step one, actually. I still have to do the shoulder seams and the front center seam. The rest of these are much shorter. I don't know why that was all one step. I know that when I first started sewing, I would get really intimidating with patterns that had like a bunch of mini steps per step. This is honestly the brutalest one I've ever seen. Usually the modern patterns, and even a lot of the older patterns, will still break it down into like multiple steps. Like this is the only piece of paper this pattern came with. Usually, unless it's a really simple garment, usually with a dress, especially a dress this complicated, not that it's terribly complicated, you know, if this is your first project, I wouldn't recommend it. Usually it's at least 7 or 8 steps, maybe 9 or 10. We get a whole whopping 5 steps in this one. Okay, big truck. He goes vroom. We get a whole whopping 5 steps in this one, and a lot of that is just step one. Like half of the page is devoted to step one. That's like kind of insane. Just know that like as you go on, this is actually less overwhelming than say like a Vogue pattern. Vogue patterns tend to break all those steps down into teeny tiny steps, which can be good for some people, but I had been sewing a little while before I had done a Vogue pattern, and when I read the instructions, I actually got a bit overwhelmed because it's like, oh my god, there's 53 steps. Because I thought they were all going to be like a McCall's pattern where there's like 3 steps a step, but it's not true. It was just all the little steps, and it sometimes makes it a little easier to follow, but it's also just about what your comfort level is at. If you want, someone to break it down for you, you might find that useful. At this point, I actually found this a little bit easier because, once you get to a point in sewing where you're starting to get more comfortable, you're always still going to have things. Like, I had to look up how to sew in a zipper when I did this. I've sewn zippers before. I'm not completely virginal to the zipper experience, but, you need a reminder. Eventually you get kind of to the point where it's like, oh, so you make a shirt. Okay, I can do that. I'm going to keep going. I have until like 5:15 today to finish this, eat dinner, and dye my hair real quick. We'll see how good I can do that and if it'll get done. Oh, also, I know you're looking at this, and if you are a sewist, you're saying, Grace, finish your seams. And to that I say, I got fire, baby.
Is on fire and your children gone away. It's what the old songs say. None of it is true, and I know you know it too. Some paper to fly away.
Okay, I was gonna go further in my work before I checked in, but this was kind of relevant. This is supposed to be a mini skirt. In theory, we're looking mid-calf T-length here. Not the vibe. Not the vibe on Daphne in the show. Not the vibe on the actual pattern front. This is the perils of being petite. So what we're gonna do, I think, after I sew the front seam, I'm gonna bring it up to more of a just above the knee length, and then when we hem it, it's going to come up even a little bit higher. You smell that? She's close. We've got sleeves. We've got a neckline. All we have left is to hem and add the little things that make Daphne, Daphne. So, I'll get back to those things. Right now, I'm gonna go eat dinner and play some Dungeons and Dragons. And I'll see you in the reveal. How did I do? I really enjoyed how this came out, and I think the shape was pretty good. I think I could have gone a little bit looser, but I love the sleeves. They really make you want to go. Does anyone else do that? Like anytime I have like a puffy, long sleeve, I just want to go. Maybe that's just me. I could definitely add on the accessories. It's kind of a struggle to find a thick headband right now because they're not in, but I think over time, the accessories we're going to build. We can only go up. We can only get better. I'm really proud of how this came out. I did it pretty fast. It was my first time ever trying an invisible stitch hem, which I did not film because it was a struggle, but I think it came out good. I'm just so excited about this. I love trying new things. So how do you think I did? What are you excited to see next time? How many cousins do you have? Do you know how many cousins you have? I don't think I know how many cousins I have. And I don't know what that says about me. Thanks for coming along with me on this little journey. 1 decade down and like 5 to go. I'm excited to do more. I cannot wait to dive into the 70s. I mean. If you liked what you saw here today, I would be thrilled, overjoyed, and absolutely grateful if you subscribed. And if you want more, I have one whole other video right here. So check it out, and I'll see you on the flip-flop.